Hello, everybody. My name is Daryl Triplett, and today I will be your narrator for the courses that we will be going over today, which is workplace violence. So, this is um, put together um, for private citizens, for security officers, for training in this training segment. So, let's get into it. Okay, workplace violence. Understanding workplace violence. Now, you got to understand something. The definition of workplace violence is any threat or harassment or disruptive behavior to any employee at any establishment um, at any workplace. All right. And there's several different types of this. You could have robberies at the workplace, things like that that would constitute as workplace violence. You can have fights, all types of things that's going on here. And then also, um, clients on workplace violence can also be like healthcare facilities and stuff like that. So you got to be very careful when we're talking about workplace violence and the definition behind workplace violence because it's very, very, very serious. It can also include workers on workers also. That's another big one that we go to work every single day, and we don't really think that this could actually happen. You get into a fight with your coworker, something like that, and here we go. We got workplace violence right here. Um, a lot of other things that we don't think about also is personal stuff. Two coworkers working together and bringing arguments to work, fights to work, child issues to work. Um, and that could constitute workplace violence also. So we want to make sure to leave those personal things at home, especially if you're working with your spouse. That's a very, very, very tricky situation. And yes, it does happen quite often, but it is a very tricky situation. So we got to be careful not to drag our personal business into the workplace. Now, there are some early warning signs of workplace violence that we need to be aware of, which is behavioral changes. So, increase in aggressive or conflicts, increase of aggressive behaviors or conflicts. Okay, so we want to be sure to take a look at that. If you know someone that's usually pretty happy and all of a sudden they're grumpy or something like that, you know that maybe something's going on that where you need to address it with that person or take it to a supervisor or something like that. Signs of paranoia or isolation. That's another one that's very, very big. When you're talking about um, uh, disproportional behavior, paranoia, always thinking someone's out to get me, always thinking that the man is always on me or the job just want to screw me over or whatever. That could be signs of early warning signs to workplace violence. Isolation, the person is usually happy go lucky, and all of a sudden they're off in a corner somewhere, and you're like, what the heck is going on with Joe today? But he's really isolated and stuff like that. That's another good sign that there may be some type of hostility building up and stuff like that. Verbal threats, intimidation, that may be signs right there of that he's hit his boiling point right there. We teach in real world scenarios on these training things, so that's just how we teach. So if you hear maybe a cuss word or something like that, understand that this is real world application is how we teach on this training segment. Because I don't want to have you go out there and hear a bad word and you get shell shocked by it, or you get so tied up on someone using that bad word that you forget that we're here for workplace violence and looking for threats and stuff like that. Intimidation, always trying to intimidate someone, things like that. That could be a great sign of early warning signs of workplace violence. Environmental factors, unusual activities in or around the workplace, damaged property or unexplained messes. Physical indicators like stalking, unwelcome attention, visible weapons, or concerning items. So a lot of times, if you're working in like a welder or something like that in heavy melting, you see this guy crafting this knife, You know that pretty much this guy's usually a good guy. He doesn't really, mess with anybody like that. That could be a sign that you may want to raise a red flag to management or to security or something like that. Stalking, unwanted advances, stuff like that. Those are also clear early warning signs of workplace violence. Okay. A girl is approached by a guy, she turns him down, he gets upset, he starts stalking her, stuff like that. Those are all early warning signs. Prevention strategies, what to do, how do we prevent this here? So I'll tell you what, the first thing is I've always said is policy is a big thing with this here. We got to have a policy on workplace violence. We will not tolerate any type of workplace violence, period, point blank. If you work for any of the companies here at G11, stuff like that, we have a zero tolerance for workplace violence. If you argue, if you're disruptive in the workplace or something like that, that's cause for immediate termination. So the first thing is to have a policy, a zero tolerance policy on workplace violence. Confidential reporting procedures, that's another big one. A lot of people don't want to report if they feel like they're going to be ratted out. So you got to have some type of confidential reporting system, some type of email system, some type of anonymous phone call, or something like that. Environmental designs, secured entry points, and surveillance systems. So we've got to have some type of security in place, and we've got to have some type of monitoring, some type of camera system in place. Those are great indicators for that security officers is sitting behind the desk watching things, that some of the things that he may look out for. So we got to have those things in place. Well-lit parking lots and common areas. Workplace culture, encourage respect and communication. That's a big one. If you get it set from the start that we're not tolerating that here, it usually goes very far. Regular team building activities. A lot of places are getting more and more familiar with this. Team building activities, doing things as a group, becoming friends, sort of somewhat at work, right? So team building activities, a professional team building activities, okay? Detection techniques, recognizing warning signs, employees' observations. If you see something, say something. If you see something, say something, okay? Anonymous tip lines, we talked about that before. Monitoring unusual behavior patterns. And regular training to ensure employees know what to look for. If you see something, say something. We teach that in our active shooter training courses that we do also, and we also teach it in our workplace violence, because you may see something in the locker room that no one else has the opportunity to see, and it's only you, and then something happens and you're like, man, I seen this in the locker room. If you see something, say something. Response to protocols. So if you want to take immediate action steps if you do see something. First off, you want to stay calm and assess the situation. Okay, it does no good if you're all flustered. You can't relay the information on to anybody else. You have to stay calm and do a self-check about yourself first. Call security or law enforcement. If you have panic buttons or anything like that, utilize that panic button. If you're working at a bank or something like that, use the panic buttons. If you're a CEO somewhere, we just seen the horrific situation that happened just with one of our CEOs here in the United States, where they were shot and killed going into a conference with no security apparently, and things like that. So you've got to be able to understand the protocol and the threats as they come. Communication, notify supervisor or HR. Don't think you're a rat. This is what we're paid to do. See something, say something in the workplace. Use code words for discreet communication. All right. That's one of the things that we've used for a very long time. Okay. Come up with a code word for your organization or your security team that, hey, something's going on here. All right. This guy is hostile. It may be, blue fox. I don't know what it is. Whatever code word you can come up with, to let someone else know that something's going on, it's a great idea. Follow-up actions: document the incident thoroughly and provide support for affected employees. Now, we're seeing this a lot. So first off, we want to make sure that when something does happen, we want to document it, of course, verbatim, accurately, and as it happened. But the second follow-up to that is, like we teach also, is providing some type of support for the employees after a horrific incident happens like that. De-escalation techniques. Now that's a very important one. So de-escalation techniques is something that we used to not teach, and it was just mainly for law enforcement and stuff like that. And under this training course for workplace violence, we're seeing it more and more prevalent. When you're dealing with a conflict situation, you want to stay calm, first off, because the other person is going to be automatically dramatic. They're going to be very excited, very loud, very boisterous. You want to always be sure to bring your voice levels down and to stay calm when you're talking to them. All right, stay calm. Use non-confrontational language in a calm voice. All right, it doesn't do no good if they're here and you're here. We're not going anywhere with this thing right here, okay? All right, so when they're here, you've got to come here, right? And come here and come down, and toning of your voice, and do non-gestured threat signs to them, okay? Avoid physical contacts or aggressive gestures. Listen actively and acknowledge any concerns. All right. Yes, I hear your concerns. I understand what you're trying to say. I understand what you're doing. Okay. So acknowledge that and listen. It's a key component in it. Okay. Avoidance strategies. Okay. Proactive planning, identifying escape routes in case of emergencies. That is so very important. I cannot tell you. Drill it. All right. Midday, I know it's a pain in the butt for everybody, but you have to drill. Okay. Hostile work employee, what do we do? What exits do we go in? If they come in here in a threatening manner, where do we lock ourselves at? Is it a bathroom? Is it a closet? Is it an exit door in the back? What are we going to do? Know where the panic alarms are and the safe rooms are. Every location should have a safe room in it. Every location should have a safe room. Avoid working alone during high-risk hours. Limit access to high-risk areas. Something that, like, for example, where someone could cut the phone wires to somewhere, or internet access to somewhere and gain control of your internet or your servers or something like that. You want to restrict those areas to key card, key access, and things like that, to only the proper personnel has the authority to go in there. Personal safety measures. Always, always, always stay aware of your surrounding areas, and always avoid aggressive individuals, engaging aggressive individuals alone. All right, that's something that where we may want to have two employees talk to them versus one. One, he may think that he could physically assault and get away with. Two, maybe he may think, or she may think, a little differently in the situation, right? Whether you're working security or whether you're working at a bank as a teller or something like that, okay? Legal and reporting obligations. It is our responsibility to report this to legal when an incidents like this happen, or it is our responsibility to contact security and things like that. Reporting all incidents or near misses. So it doesn't necessarily even have to be an incident. It just has to be a near miss, right? Someone comes in and starts screaming at the top of their voice, maybe knocks over a pen holder or something like that holds your pens or something like that. Are we calling in a SWAT team for that? No, probably not. But do we need to document that? Do we need to notify our supervisor and our legal of that? Absolutely, positively. That's almost a near miss. That guy may come back tomorrow and may be a little bit more aggressive. Let's see here. We also want to be sure to obey by all OSHA laws also, because when we're talking about workplace violence, it is the employer's responsibility to make sure that all of the employees are safe to the best of their abilities, okay? Support and recovery. Provide resources for affected employees. That's what employers are learning all over the world. When something major happens like this, we have to provide support to the affected employees, whether it's a near miss situation and someone's traumatized by it, or if it's a full blown out fight in a workplace or something like that. The employers are responsible and should get you some type of counseling for that. Counseling and employee assistance programs, your EAPs, that should be a clear thing that is in effect for each company out there. Clear communications about steps taken post incident. Okay, that's very, very important. We have to talk about these things and encouraging team resilience and rebuilding trust. That's a big one. All right, so after incident happens, where do we go from here? How do we ensure that this doesn't happen again? And how do we gain back trust of our employees or our community and things of that nature here? Okay, so these are very, very, very important. Continuous improvements. You know, regular training is a key here. We have to constantly train for these type of things. And I know it's an expense to employers. I know it's an inconvenience to employees, but for the general public that we're responsible for, or for just a training of our own self and our own personal safety, regular training and refresher courses are a must. Conducting drills and simulations are a must. Okay. Reviewing and updating policies and procedures is a must. You cannot wait until something happens and then have the oh crap factor happen. All right. So, you know, when we're talking about the workplace violence, it is something that should be taken seriously, and it's something that we need to drill for, and it's something that we need to have a clear, concise, open communications with HR about. If you see something, don't forget, it is your responsibility to say something. I'm your instructor, Daryl Triplett with G11 Security Training Division. Thank you.